Dr. Zekthor had dedicated 3 centuries to xenobiology, studying lesser species across 12 star systems. In all that time, nothing had prepared him for the creature strapped to his examination table, a human, captured from a primitive colony ship drifting through the outer reach. The specimen was unremarkable at first glance. Bipedal, carbon-based, no natural armor, no venom sacs, no redundant organs. Zekthor's mandibles clicked with disappointment. The Galactic Council had warned against studying humans, citing some obscure protocol about unstable adaptive responses, but he'd dismissed it as bureaucratic nonsense. Subject exhibits standard pain responses, Zekthor dictated into his neural recorder, applying the neural stimulator to the human's exposed arm. The creature, it had called itself Marcus, screamed and thrashed against the restraints. Fascinating. The vocal cords could reach impressive frequencies. For weeks, Zekthor conducted his experiments. He tested the human's tolerance to extreme temperatures, introduced exotic pathogens, and subjected it to graduated levels of psychological stress. Each time Marcus would break down, weep, beg for mercy in that primitive Earth language, and each time, Zekthor would note the responses with clinical detachment before moving to the next test. But something strange began happening around the 4th week. Marcus stopped screaming. His eyes, once filled with terror, grew cold and calculating. When Zekthor administered the pain stimulators, the human would simply stare at him, jaw clenched, breathing controlled. The pathogen that should have killed him within hours was fought off in days. The psychological torture that should have shattered his mind only seemed to sharpen it. Curious, Zekthor muttered, checking his instruments. Subject demonstrating unprecedented adaptive resistance. What the scientist didn't understand, what none of his species could understand, was that humans didn't just endure suffering. They learned from it. They adapted. They remembered. Marcus had spent those weeks studying his captor just as intently as he'd been studied. He'd learned the layout of the laboratory, the security protocols, the exact moment when Zekthor's 3 eyes would glaze over in scientific fascination. He'd tested his restraints during each session, finding the microscopic weaknesses in their design. Most importantly, he'd learned to weaponize his own physiology. Humans, it turned out, were terrifyingly good at one thing the rest of the galaxy had evolved past: violence. The opportunity came during a routine stress response evaluation. Zekthor had grown careless, standing too close, so absorbed in his data that he didn't notice Marcus had worked one hand partially free. The human's eyes tracked the energy scalpel on the nearby tray, the same instrument that had carved into his flesh dozens of times. In one explosive movement, Marcus ripped his arm free, ignoring the tearing sensation as the restraint took skin with it. His hand closed around the scalpel. Zekthor's 3 eyes widened in shock. But his reaction time, evolved for a low-gravity world with minimal predators, was glacially slow compared to a species forged in Earth's brutal evolutionary crucible. The scalpel found its mark. Zekthor collapsed, his blue blood pooling on the pristine laboratory floor. Marcus freed himself completely, his hands working with the methodical efficiency of someone who'd had weeks to plan this moment. The alien security systems were sophisticated, but they were designed to keep things out, not in. Within minutes, Marcus had overridden the locks. Now standing over the wounded scientist, Marcus held the neural stimulator, that damned device that had caused him so much agony, and looked down at the creature who'd tortured him with such casual scientific interest. Zekthor's translator unit crackled to life. "Please, I was only conducting research. Standard protocols. You're just a specimen." "Funny," Marcus said, his voice hoarse from weeks of screaming. "That's exactly what I've been telling myself during your experiments. That you're just a specimen, a thing to be studied." He activated the neural stimulator, watching Zekthor's body convulse. "How does it feel, Doctor?" "From that perspective?" "Stop, please." Zekthor's mandibles chattered in terror. "I'll release you. Give you access to the ship. Anything." Marcus paused, studying the alien with the same clinical detachment Zekthor had shown him. But where the scientist had seen only data, Marcus saw something else, an opportunity. "Here's what you're going to do," Marcus said, deactivating the stimulator. "You're going to send a message to your Galactic Council. You're going to tell them exactly what happened here, and you're going to explain why their protocol about humans wasn't bureaucratic nonsense, it was a survival guide." Zekthor's eyes darted to his communication console. They won't care about one human. They will when you tell them there are 8 billion more where I came from. Marcus smiled, and there was nothing warm in that expression. 8 billion humans who share one very special trait. We don't forget who hurt us, and we're very, very good at returning the favor. The scientist's body trembled as the implications washed over him. His species had encountered aggressive races before, conquered primitive worlds, but something about the human's words carried a certainty that chilled his circulatory system. You're going to be my advocate, Doctor, Marcus continued, pulling up the star charts on Zekthor's terminal. You're going to make sure the Council understands that humans are to be left alone. Completely alone, because if one more ship comes near Earth, if one more human ends up on a table like yours, I promise you, we will find you, all of you, and we will show you exactly what 300,000 years of evolutionary warfare has taught us. Thor looked at the primitive creature standing over him and finally understood what the Council had tried to warn him about. Most species evolved toward cooperation, toward peaceful coexistence. But humans had climbed to the top of their food chain by being the most persistent, creative, and ruthless predators their world had ever produced. And they held grudges. I'll send the message, Zekthor whispered, all his scientific pride evaporating in the face of genuine terror. I'll make them understand. Good, Marcus said, finally lowering the neural stimulator. Because you're going to take me home, Doctor? And if I don't arrive safely, well... He activated the device one more time, just for a second, just to make his point. Let's just say you'll have plenty of time to regret it during the trip. As Zekthor scrambled to set coordinates for Earth, his hands shaking with each input, he realized he'd made the greatest mistake of his 3-century career. He hadn't discovered a new species to study. He'd woken a sleeping monster, and he'd done it by teaching that monster exactly where it hurt most.